Next on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
In Nebraska, how cattle feeding and ethanol production now go hand in hand. Plus, we'll take a look at how technology is playing an important role in beef production.
The human element is what they are seeking. That is the way that we get the attention from the media.
And we'll hear from activist Trent Loos and explain his latest effort for American cattlemen.
And now, NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with your host, Susie Ross.
Hello, I'm Susie Ross. Thanks for watching Cattleman to Cattleman. In this week's cattle industry news, there are encouraging developments in the Asian export markets. A shipment of U.S. beef is now in South Korea. Officials there pledged to reject only individual boxes of beef that are found to contain bone fragments. Korea previously rejected entire U.S. beef shipments because of tiny bone chips. Cattlemen are watching how Korea handles this shipment to see if the market is truly reopening. Japan is also taking positive steps toward expanding its range of U.S. beef imports. Exports to Japan are currently limited to beef from cattle no more than 20 months of age. This restriction severely limits the market's growth potential. U.S. officials hope Japan will adopt internationally accepted guidelines later this year, and if that happens, exports could include beef from cattle of any age as long as certain risk materials are removed. The 2007 cattle on feed numbers are down compared to last year. So what does the latest cattle on feed report show? We have more in this week's Market Watch.
Market Watch, brought to you by Pfizer Animal Health.
Joining us is Kevin Good of CattleFacts. Welcome, Kevin. Always glad to have you here. In early 2007, cattle on feed numbers have been below 2006 totals. Based on the latest report, is that turning around?
Basically, the trend is still intact. On-feed numbers April 1st were down 1% compared to a year ago. If we looked at the first quarter, placements have been down 6%. The biggest drop in placements were basically in January, down 23%, or about 500,000 head. We've seen the trend change a little bit since then. We've got a little larger placements the second half of February. March placements were up 7%, so that trend as far as on-feed numbers increasing, we're seeing that, but we're still below a year ago levels.
Reports earlier this year were showing a shift in feedlot numbers, with an increase in the northern states and a decline in the southern plains. Is that a trend that we're going to see continue?
I think it is. If we looked at the last on-feed report, cattle on feed numbers in Nebraska were up 3%, in Iowa up 6%. Compare that to Texas, which was down 5%. In fact, if you combine the northern states of South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska, on-feed numbers are up 150,000 head in those northern states, compared to the three southern states of Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma being down 150,000 head. So the bottom line there is that we've got 1,000 head a day more cattle to harvest in the north compared to a year ago, and 1,000 head less in the south to harvest on a daily basis compared to a year ago.
In addition to cattle numbers, carcass weights, of course, play a big role in all of this. With grain prices being so high, are cattle spending less time in the feedlot?
That's an interesting question because despite high grain prices, actually days on feed in the first quarter of 07 are similar to 06. So if you looked at the drop in carcass weights, and they have dropped so far year to date, steer carcass weights are down 6 pounds compared to a year ago. We can contrast that to the fourth quarter of 06 where weights were 10 to 15 pounds above a year ago. The primary reason for the drop in weights, it looks to us like, is the severe winter weather we've had in the cattle feeding range. Another factor, though, with higher grain prices is that feeder cattle placement weights have increased. They're up 10 pounds year to date compared to last year. This is primarily because the cost of gains are higher in the feed yard than they are outside of feed yards. So we're going to tend to leave our feeder cattle and calf supply outside of feedlots longer.
Okay, Kevin, any big surprises that you're seeing in this report that will have a major impact on the cattle market?
Really, if you look at the bottom line here, on-feed numbers are below year-ago levels, but they still remain elevated from a historical standpoint. In addition to this, the lighter placements that we had in the first quarter of 07 should mean lighter than normal supplies in the second and third quarter of 07. So seasonally, we see bigger supplies and lower prices in the summer. We think that will happen again this year, but probably not to the extent that we've seen in some of the past years.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
For more information, head to cattle-facts.com. Cattle feeding and ethanol production are sometimes seen as competing interests, but in Mead, Nebraska, they go hand in hand. Manure from a feedlot is used to power the local ethanol plant, while the byproduct the plant produces is fed to area cattle. Cattleman to Cattleman's Jim Witt takes a closer look at this breakthrough in bioenergy.
With the high price of corn these days, you would think a feedlot and an ethanol plant might not get along so well. But here in Meade, Nebraska, they don't just coexist, they've teamed up in a way that's innovative, efficient, and great for the environment.
Over the last few years, we've been dealing with some people that wanted to utilize our manure to make methane and fuel an ethanol plant and then feed the byproduct from the ethanol plant back to the cattle. So it's an interesting concept where our manure, which is clean, it's down in a pit underneath these barns, we'll be utilizing an anaerobic digester, make methane from it, and then we'll have compost and nitrogen and gray water come out of that process that we can sell and use ourselves. And the byproduct from the ethanol plant will be fed to the cattle here at the feed yard. So you've got a closed loop system here.
The key component is an anaerobic digester that turns everyday cow manure into valuable natural gas.
Anaerobic digestion's been around for thousands of years. It's just now that here in the United States we're understanding the value of anaerobic digestion, both from the environmental side and from the energy production side. We got about 30,000 head in the feedlot, and they'll make enough manure along with some of the byproduct out of the ethanol plant, essentially the thin stillage. Those two products will make, we think, about 2 million cubic foot of biogas a day.
One of the criticisms of ethanol is that it often requires a lot of fossil fuel to produce. But that's not the case at the E3 Biofuels plant.
Our only fuel is biogas, which is generated in the anaerobic digesters from the thin stillage and the cattle manure here at the feedlot. So we're not going to rely on outside natural gas to produce the ethanol. So that gives us a big cost advantage over most conventional ethanol plants in that natural gas is the second highest expense after corn in most conventional ethanol plants.
The adjacent feedlot not only helps power the plant, it also makes the byproduct easier and more efficient to feed.
We'll feed the wet cake as it is without drying it directly to the cattle on site here. Most conventional ethanol plants have to dry their stillage into dry distiller's grain to ship it some distance to a feedlot. And since we're co-located, we won't have to dry it. And that'll save us quite a bit of energy too, because about a third of the natural gas that's burned in most conventional plants goes for drying that distiller's grain.
The plant and the feedlot also team up to buy corn, which they get from local farmers.
We're utilizing the personnel in the feedlot to buy all of our corn. We'll buy about 8 bushels for every one that they buy, but they've got a reputation here, and they know the local farmers, and they've worked with them as far as scheduling deliveries and payments.
When it comes to keeping things local, these guys have it down to a science.
Most of the ethanol we make here will probably stay within a 100-mile radius, and it'll all be trucked out. All the corn will also be trucked in, so it'll come from local area farmers. But we're located in Saunders County, which is the largest corn-producing county in the state of Nebraska, so most of our corn will come from in close.
Meade Cattle Company also enjoys an advantage over most feedlots when it comes to manure management.
We'll be a lot more popular with our neighbors as well.
While still in its early stages, this arrangement looks very promising.
Yeah, there's some tricky parts to this whole process. Cattle manure has its own challenges as far as digestion, but preliminary results and so far I think we'll be able to meet 90 to 100% of our gas needs for the ethanol plant.
Reporting from Meade, Nebraska, this is Jim Witt for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
For more on this unique approach to ethanol production, check out our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Ahead, we'll take a look at the important role technology is playing in beef production, plus the latest effort from beef industry activist Trent Loos. But first, here's a look at this week's market summary provided by CattleFax.
From fresh tomatoes to potatoes and chicken to beef. We're as picky about our quality ingredients as you are. Because that's what we're made of.
Purina's wind and rain minerals are research tested and field proven to provide balanced mineral nutrition essential for cattle health, growth, and reproduction. They're highly palatable so cattle consume what they need when they need it. And wind and rain mineral special formulation resists the elements so they won't blow out of the feeder and maintain their palatability even if they've been wet. Wind and rain cattle minerals from Purina Mills, building better cattle.
In 1874, an innovation changed the beef industry forever. It was called barbed wire, and it brought an end to open-range grazing and began a whole new era of cattle management. Today, there's another breakthrough innovation changing the beef industry. It's called Draxxin, and it's one more way Pfizer Animal Health is working with veterinarians and cattlemen to open up a whole new era in animal health. To learn more about Draxxin, talk to your veterinarian.
Welcome back to Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Beef producers have adopted a variety of technologies to improve their production, but one thing hasn't changed: their commitment to preserving the environment and producing a great-tasting, safe product. Kevin Ochsner reports.
Beef production still takes good cattle, good pasture, quality feed, and careful management. But just like advancements in science have improved everything from our pickups to our homes, science has also improved our nation's ability to produce safe, abundant, and affordable beef.
What we've done in essence over the last 50 years is increase the gas mileage of our agricultural system. So we're getting twice as much out of every acre of land and every input. And that, on the whole, is an incredible benefit. When we can get our food supply from half as much land, we can leave a lot of land for other uses, such as wildlife habitat, recreation, other human needs.
Alex Avery, who has studied plant physiology and crop development, is an expert at the Hudson Institute's Center for Global Food Issues.
One of the things that we found clear cut is that modern technologies have helped us produce more from less. And that, on the whole, is an incredible environmental benefit that most people don't stop to think about.
Tracy Bruner is representative of today's farmers and ranchers who have put modern technologies to use in their own farming operations. We caught up with Bruner at a recent meeting with fellow cattlemen.
We're the fourth generation of Bruners to be producing beef. We have a diversified operation all the way from seed stock and ranching and farming to cattle finishing. We're very committed to improving the value of our land and leaving that land in better shape for the next generation of Bruners.
Growth promoting products are among the technologies that have helped improve cattle production.
Growth promotants, as used in our normal cattle and beef production process, increase the amount of beef that we are able to produce from the same amount of feed and land. In other words, lowering the cost of that beef to our ultimate customer. All products that we use are researched and tested and approved by the Federal Food and Drug Administration.
Dr. Woodrow Knight recently retired from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration after 35 years of service. During his career, he analyzed safety studies and supervised teams of researchers who studied the safety of animal health products.
The FDA itself is responsible for showing that the drugs are safe and effective for animals, and that the food from these animals that are treated with these drugs are safe for humans to eat. And so we are very, very comfortable when we say a product is safe in an animal.
When we return, Dr. Knight and Alex Avery explain how technology is making a difference in both the beef we eat and to the environment in which we raise cattle.
There ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Canine Advantix is the one that repels and kills disease-spreading fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. Frontline Plus doesn't repel and isn't effective against mosquitoes. So ask your veterinarian for Canine Advantix, the one that repels and kills.
Yeah, there may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
To some, it's just a pasture. But to you, it's part of a livelihood to be passed along. That's why Fort Dodge Animal Health developed Cydectin with pasture health in mind. Cydectin protects against performance-robbing internal and external parasites. And it's the only insecticide proven to have no adverse effects on beneficial dung beetle populations. Cydectin from Fort Dodge Animal Health, protecting your herd and your pasture, so they can both be passed along.
NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Let's rejoin Kevin Ochsner as he investigates the role of technology in beef production.
Testing for safety doesn't stop with the animal or the beef produced by that animal.
Even before the companies start testing the product, they must do an environmental assessment to tell us what they expect might happen.
An animal health product is ruled safe and approved for use only after FDA testing demonstrates that the manufacture or use of the product does not have a harmful effect on the air, water, or other plants and animals in the environment.
Once a drug is approved, the sponsor is required to report to the FDA on an annual basis its findings with the drug. Any changes in any new information that occurs in the literature, anything that's reported, the sponsor has to submit it to the FDA. If anything unusual happens, they have to submit it to the FDA immediately. The sophistication of the FDA scientists, they are well renowned as the experts in the world in food safety and animal drug production. In fact, most countries wait to see if the product can pass FDA scrutiny before they even allow it to be looked at in their country.
The real question is, are these thoroughly researched and approved products necessary to produce the world's food supply? Knight and Avery say yes.
They reduce the amount of fat, they make the meat more lean, and in our opinion, that's a more wholesome product in terms of health issues.
The use of growth promotants and other modern technologies have allowed us to increase the amount of edible beef per animal by 50%. Which means we can get the amount of beef we consume, roughly 27 billion pounds a year in the U.S., from only 95 million animals. If we didn't use growth promotants and these other modern technologies, we'd need a beef herd of 180 million animals, which would produce significantly more waste, more methane, more CO2. So on the whole, when you look at the totality, we're getting a heck of a lot more with a heck of a lot less, and that's an environmental triumph. We'd need an additional 450 million acres to feed that many more animals. That's the amount of land that's in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, and Kansas.
And Avery believes the benefits of finishing cattle on grain cannot be dismissed.
People have a false impression of what a feedlot really is all about. And what they are is a place where we can finish the animals, add the flavor characteristics with the feed ration, and do it in a way that's incredibly responsible. Rather than having these animals distributed on a low productivity pasture-based system where the waste is scattered about, we have the animals in a central location where we can collect the waste, use it as a fertilizer resource, we can control the dust, and we can control the welfare of the animals far better. People long for the good old days, they do, but that's usually because they forget how bad the good old days were. We could go back to driving 1952 DeSotos, and they're neat-looking cars, but they get terrible gas mileage and they're very unsafe. And when you look at what we've done in agriculture, it's very analogous. We've made it much more safer, more nutritious, higher quality, on a lot fewer resources. It's essentially the difference between that 1952 vehicle and today's modern hybrid automobile. It's critically important to produce more food from fewer resources because the world's population is set to increase another 50%. A lot more of those people in 2050 are going to be eating and demanding a high-quality diet. If we don't continue to increase the resource productivity of our farming systems, we're going to have to destroy a lot of wildlife habitat to meet those needs. That's something that nobody wants.
What I'm always comfortable about is that we in the United States are never uneasy about going into a restaurant anywhere in the country and eating.
And the bottom line is it not only helps the American economy, but helps us produce great tasting beef for our customers here and abroad.
For more information about growth enhancement technologies, head to cattlemantocattleman.org. He works hard to educate consumers about the beef industry. Ahead, we'll explain how one industry activist is doing his part to represent American cattlemen and women. We'll be right back.
Agriculture is a small portion of the population now, and if we're not working together, we're not going to get anywhere.
As our family, we cannot be in Washington, D.C. all the time, and I just couldn't live without NCBA representing.
They're looking out for our interests. They're there fighting for us every day.
If you got 1 cow or 2 cows or 100 cows, you need to be a member.
I'm a member of the NCBA because a long time ago, 35 years ago, I felt that I needed to know more of what my industry is doing. So I got started at the county level. If you're in the cattle industry, now's the time to join and let your voice be heard loud and clear.
You need NCBA working for you, and NCBA needs you. It's easy to join. Just call, get online, or talk with your state affiliate and sign up today.
I'm quite concerned with a recent survey that I've seen where 1 in 3 college students self-proclaim to be vegans or vegetarians. And it's not because they believe beef or meat products are unhealthy for them, but they don't think we need to kill animals any longer for their dietary protein. There's nothing further from the truth, and I think it's time that those of us that are involved in food animal production get very involved in telling the story on the reason that we raise animals, the reasons from a dietary standpoint that all kids in this country need beef in their diet, the science that says kids that do not have beef in their diet every day suffer from a cognitive development standpoint. The message is up to us. We must get more aggressive in telling the story on why beef consumption needs to be a vital part of every young person's diet in this country. We can no longer sit back and wait on somebody else to tell our story. It's our story. We are the expert of our own experiences. Please join me in telling our story to the nation.
NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
Welcome back. You may know Trent Loos from his radio talk show or for his outspoken advocacy in the beef industry. And now Trent is turning his attention to the proposed horse slaughter ban. Horse processing is a humane option for managing animals that may not otherwise be cared for. But now, celebrity activists are making strides toward eliminating horse processing in the United States, and they offer no alternatives for the more than 90,000 horses that will need care, food, and shelter. In Illinois, a bill failed twice in the state legislature before actress Bo Derek got involved. Illinois lawmakers were persuaded by the celebrity presence and banned horse processing. And now Trent Loos is fighting back. Loos is organizing a road trip from Illinois to California, collecting horses along the way. His destination? Bo Derek's ranch in Santa Barbara. Trent's Bo Knows Best journey begins May 7th. And Trent is looking for donations. To help, head to our website, cattlemantocattleman.org, for details. As little as $25 can help Trent on his journey. This week's legacy photos come to us from around the country. Let's take a look. Please keep sending those photos. We're also looking for pictures for a special Mother's Day tribute. Head to cattlemantocattleman.org and don't forget to include details about those photos. Next week, we'll head to Texas for advice on how to deal with horn flies. Plus, we'll take a look at the U.S. Meat Export Federation's trip to Asia. And as always, your news and market headlines. Thanks for joining us on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Be sure to tune in next week. A new episode airs every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time right here on RFD TV.